Here we go. My buddy Ryan made the soundtrack. It's playing right now.
Easy music.
I wish you could hear it, but you'll hear it on the replay, right? It's like it's kind of like the intro to Friends or Seinfeld or something. It's a little random, but it's a catchy tune. Well, welcome to the show, everybody. This is the Difference Is You podcast. We're gonna meet with Abdul today. And here we go. All right, that was the end. So Abdul Chowdhury, I've got some notes, but I do want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself. From what I know, you're not from America. You weren't born here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you had told me your parents are Bangladeshi and they moved to England.
Yes, that's
Okay,
right.
and then but now we live in the same city. You're on the west side of Los Angeles, and I'm on the east side in Monterey Park. And I don't know how you found my podcast, but you're here now. Well, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Well, we met on the Asian Entrepreneurs Facebook page,
Okay.
and I'm always curious just to meet entrepreneurs in general. And when it's from any kind of minority, I'm always curious just to pick your brain and learn something new and get a different perspective. So I wanted to reach out, and I saw that you were doing this podcast and chat with you about how does it feel to have your own podcast? How is it navigating it? Who's your audience? What's the reception been like? Is it your first time doing a podcast? I'm just so curious about someone that's so entrepreneurial and using technology to reach out to people,
Okay.
because I'm really fascinated by storytellers and how my goal is to be a horror movie producer. That's why I came to America. I came to LA
Mm.
and learning the ropes. And I'm fascinated by the idea that, talent management companies, broadcasters are firing people in huge numbers, not
Wow.
just because of the COVID, but because their viewing numbers are going down. You don't need the same technology that you needed 15 years ago to reach huge audiences.
Wow.
Like you could reach huge numbers of audiences that you would need so much infrastructure to do before. So where does that take us?
Mm-hmm.
Where I can make a show and then put it on YouTube, put it on Vimeo, and monetize it myself and get an audience.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean for us?
Mm-hmm.
Especially, and I was interested in talking with you,
Mm-hmm.
like generation, how it felt.
Well, let's go off of that. What does it mean for us? And if you see me typing or taking notes, I'm not. I'm 100% focused on my podcast, and you. I'm just taking notes while you're talking. So let's go off of that first. What does it mean for us? And when you say us, I imagine you're saying minorities, Asian Americans, perhaps, but maybe minorities in general. I'm going to put that question back in your play. What do you mean exactly? What does that mean for us versus everybody?
Well, you grow up with that generalized term, representation is important, and
Yep.
you don't really know what it means until you start seeing people like Aziz Ansari and um, his name. He does the show on Netflix. Hassan Minat.
I don't get out too much. I've watched a lot of Netflix. I don't watch too much like comedy, or is that the genre he's from? Or
comedy, and
I know
also
Russell. I know Russell Peters is a famous
Russell-
Asian slash Indian, or I don't know what his background is exactly.
but it changes also about how you're represented and seen by the media, by your own people,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
and it's important to have a voice and represent in the media.
Okay. Well, in
So,
that sense, I know it's like this racism is a big issue right now with the Black Lives Matter movement, and I think historically, like Asians and Black people should kind of band together because we are minorities, right? And I think minorities are stronger. If we're trying to fight the status quo and we're trying to get better representation with the majority, break into things that normally are only open to white people. I think it makes sense for minorities to band together. The sad thing is that when you even get racism from minorities to minorities, I think for the most part, majority of Asians do kind of support Black Lives Matter movement, and I'm sure there's racism both ways. Like I'm sure there's Asians that remain racist towards black people. I'm sure there's black people that remain racist towards Asians, and I think that happens less than you might think, but it might also happen more than you might think. Like I just watched this real sad video earlier this year about some black kids, and they're being ignorant, but they're like bullying an old Asian man in the street. And that's just one instance. I know that it doesn't happen everywhere, but it's just kind of like we both sides, Asians, blacks, I think we need to do a better job, all of us, at really teaching our kids and future generations that, like, hey man, like, it's sad to say it is like a white person's world, especially if you live in America. And there are places that are better integrated. Like I'm in Monterey Park in East LA, and so it's like you go outside and the street names have Chinese letters on them. So it's like I feel at home here because everyone here looks like me. And there's other places in LA that are like, this is where the Indian people go. I think like Torrance is one of those areas where if you look like yourself, you walk out and you'll feel comfortable. But in that sense, Los Angeles itself is somewhat culturally diverse, and then but each kind of nationality, they kind of have their pockets where they reside. There's literal Chinatown, which is right outside of downtown, and then a little bit further away where I am, Alhambra, Monterey Park. That's kind of where the yellow-skinned Asians kind of settle down, San Gabriel Valley. And the interesting thing about Monterey Park specifically is that it borders East LA and Montebello, which is heavily Hispanic. So right here, you have a integration of Hispanics and Asians, where you go to the Ralphs down the street, and it's primarily Asians and Hispanics, where you won't see that in a lot of places. But back to your point, what does it mean for us? What does technology and this infrastructure mean for Asians in general? Whether it's like Asians that look like me or Asians that look like you.
Right.
I mean, it's good. I mean, it helps. It's easy for me to do a podcast and upload it and perhaps inspire other people. And the kids growing up see an Asian guy on TV or on YouTube and think, oh, I can do that too. So I think it's only good. It might kind of suck in a way that you were saying, oh, people are just getting laid off, but that comes with technology, and then that's just going to force people to gain different skills, and that's just the way things are. With every technological movement, whether it's the industrial revolution or the technology revolution, jobs will be lost and jobs will be created. It's just you got to adapt, or you can cry about it, right? It's one way or the other.
Yeah. Well, one thing I hear is learn coding, right? And learn how to code is how you'll survive. But what
Yeah,
about
yeah,
us?
yes and no. I mean, I don't think there's any skill that can hurt you. You can learn photography. You can learn how to write. You can learn how to swim. Maybe go be a lifeguard. Who knows, right? Learn how to make coffee. Whatever. There's just I think right now it's a bad time to learn coding. It's a great time to learn coding. I can make an argument either way. It's a great time to learn coding because technology is the future. It's a horrible time to learn coding because there's so many things that you don't need to code anymore. Websites are easy to make. There's software applications like Zapier and if this then that just connect so you can make a case both ways that there things you used to have to code like websites, you don't need to code that anymore, but you'll always need a coder, and coders make a lot of money. But at the same time, because everybody knows that you need to learn code, you have a whole legion of people learning it now, so it's a saturated industry. So there's arguments both ways for everything. Like yeah.
Well, I wanted to tell stories and I wanted to make movies. And I'm originally from Croydon, which is southeast London. And you have to always remember, where is the supply and the demand? There wasn't that much of a demand for filmmakers in England.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a competitive market. But in America, it feels like even though there are so many movies being made, you still can make your movie and have an audience.
Of course.
You still have a place to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy because there are so many people aspiring, and to suggest that England is more competitive than America, no. America is one of the most competitive places to do this
Mm-hmm.
business. You have to sacrifice so much, you have to know so much, and you have to give, and it's opportunity and timing and luck. But I feel like you have such a great chance to do it here and to learn it,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
way that I
Well,
never got a chance to see in England.
okay. Well, what did you say? You're 33 years old?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm even a little bit older than you, but what? Why did I just? What is that sound from? I just heard a bling bling bling. Is that from my end? Anyway, that sounded like when you get a new follower from Twitch. Well, I'll figure it out later. So I've got so many tabs open, I can't figure out where a sound comes from, But um, I was actually, we did chat a little bit via Instant Messenger and before the podcast started. And but you mentioned something after we started the podcast that's very interesting to me is that horror movie production is what you're interested in. Tell me a little bit more about that, Abdul.
I really want to make horror movies. That's
Okay.
always been my dream. I grew up watching horror movies, things like Alien and The Thing.
Okay.
John Carpenter is one of my favorite filmmakers.
Uh-huh.
His music and um, yeah, that would be my dream to make horror movies. And
Okay.
I feel like I'm getting there. I'm learning how stories are made and how teams work and how this business generally works. And you really just find your own community of people and you make your stories.
Where are you on writing your first script?
Still putting it together.
Still putting it together. Okay.
But it's possible to do it now. I feel like where I was in England versus where I am now, I
Uh-huh.
just feel much more confident in attempting to make one. I know people that have dedicated their lives to one thing. I have friends that only want to work on camera, only want to do sound, only want to edit. You know, you come to America and you find all these specialists.
Well, that's why you're the producer because you can put all these little specialists and pieces together, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, let
And
me yeah, go ahead.
I always loved the idea of building teams. I was never a big sports fan. I don't know much about sports or
Mhm.
music. Those are two big weaknesses with me. But I love how in American sports, there are so many great quotes to study, so many great people, leaders to study of how to build teams, how to motivate people. And I feel like when I came to America, I got another education really in motivation,
Okay.
having aspirations and motivating yourself and being driven. And I feel like those are very American things.
I mean, those are maybe some of the better things to pick up from America. I do think that motivation is big, and but I also believe that a little bit, um, when you have too much of a good thing, it can be bad too, right? It could turn into greed and capitalism. The profit motive can end up leading you down the dark path. If you don't really keep in mind the true reason beyond money that you end up doing things. So, but yeah, no, I try to stay positive and pull the best lessons. But I've also seen the worst of it, man. I mean, we're looking at it right now. We're looking at a president that cannot accept that he lost, right? So like while there are some characteristics that I admire about Trump, that like he even won the presidency in the first place. He overcame a lot of doubters and odds. So you got to respect that, right? That like, wow, this guy came from no political experience, and then he won with this super positive attitude. Well, that same attitude won't let him accept that he actually lost. You see, so there's pros and cons of that, go-getter attitude and I can't lose attitude. Well, you're seeing it play out right now.
Agreed. And sometimes you're also not fit for the job.
Sometimes you're not fit for the job. Exactly. Well, you had said some things like anyone can make a movie. That's more true now than ever. Like what was that horror movie that was made back in the day? The kids ran around with the 8 millimeter camera or whatever. I forget.
The Blair Witch
Blair
Project.
Witch Project, exactly. Like they just freaking ran around and made that movie, and this was what 15, 20 years ago, right? And now you could, yeah.
Horror movie. And also, right now, Blumhouse, another great example of making these low budget, incredible horror
What
movies.
what is
And
that? I'm gonna write these down because my girlfriend and I are looking for horror films to watch actually on Netflix and wherever. We can't really we've seen them all. So give me some recommendations for the audience.
there's a great one on Netflix right now called His House,
His
a
house, okay,
British movie about immigrants that come to England and face racism as they're trying to assimilate in England.
okay,
And it's such a beautiful story because my dad came from Bangladesh to England,
okay.
and he struggled a lot, with racism and having a hard time just from people, how they treated him and how he had to adjust in England in a
Mhm,
complete country. And the main character works in a bank. My dad worked in a bank in
mm,
Bangladesh,
mhm.
and then he comes to England and he's working in a restaurant.
Wow.
But
Mm,
my dad is very ambitious and he's done very, very well for himself.
okay. What does your dad do right now, or is he retired?
He has a restaurant in
Oh,
England.
oh wow, nice. Did you ever work in that restaurant?
Yeah, I've worked with my dad. Why? Do you
No,
have family?
I laugh because I've had some restaurant experience and I hated it. It's like the worst job I've ever had. I mean, it really humbled me and taught me some different kind of work ethic and showed me a lot about human beings. I don't know if restaurants in England are different from restaurants in America, but Americans, to generalize, they have a very entitled attitude, like there's the whole tipping economy, and it goes both ways, there's this kind of entitlement from customers and the waiters. The waiters expect to get tipped. On the other hand, the customers have a very poor attitude in that they feel like, for their tip that they deserve to be treated like royalty. And um and they and they in Americans in general, I don't say everybody does this, but they tend to treat their service people like crap and not like actual human beings. I don't know if you have experienced this on either side as a customer here or, working in a restaurant in England.
Yeah, I worked. My dad had cab offices. He was a taxi driver for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
He was in restaurants, and I worked for him in both. You
Mm-hmm.
know, uh,
Mm-hmm.
guy answering the phones and dispatching the drivers and dealing with the customers that came on site. And you learn so much just interacting with people, right? You learn about communication. You learn about working in a team. You learn about dealing with rude people and disappointed people. A
Mm-hmm.
taxi late. How do you deal with it? How do you allocate resources when somebody needs to go here? Who's more urgent? What's more immediate? I feel like those can be difficult places, and you shouldn't spend too long working in them. You should have, unless that's your end goal,
Mm-hmm.
run
Mm-hmm.
a restaurant or have a cab office. I feel like any situation you're in, you should just learn from. You know, you need a mentor once told me, attract, don't chase. You
Mm.
know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
how do you survive in nature? You attract,
Mm.
right? You plants and everything, it attracts things. And he's a wise guy, and I feel like his advice was create.
Mm-hmm.
In our industry, you attract by creating.
Absolutely, man. I'm gonna. I don't know if I want to say borrow or just steal that quote right now. Attract, not chase. But that's the simplest way to put my new philosophy of marketing. Not mine. I mean, like everybody is kind of going into this attract, don't chase, create content, let your prospects come to you, kind of. But I think a lot of people are still in the chase mentality when it comes to business and prospecting and leads is, going after your customers, finding them, which I think you got to do a little bit of both. But if you really have to choose where to focus your time, I agree. It's on creating and attracting the people that actually want to see your stuff rather than pushing your stuff to people that may not even want to see it. So 100%, man, whoever your mentor was has helped me out from you just sharing that phrase with me. Um, I want to. I know previously you had mentioned entrepreneurialism in the Asian community, and maybe even I don't know why you had mentioned. I think you had mentioned your parents didn't really agree with you pursuing entertainment. Is that something you might want to talk about right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, how do your family feel? And I feel like because our communities are different, right?
Yeah.
As far as the Western tradition goes and how much of an influence our parents' opinions have on our choices in life,
Oh,
right?
of course. Yeah.
It weighs so heavily. So in the Bengali culture,
Mm-hmm.
there are no successful filmmakers,
Yeah.
especially now, where in our community in Bangladesh, it's a look down upon profession. You know, you can't make a living out of it, really, because
Well, yeah. Mm-hmm.
no, please go ahead.
Well, it's a couple different ways to look at this, man. Judging my personal experience is not quite fair because my parents were not the typical Asian parents, but all my friends' parents were. So I can see it from both perspectives. And so for the people that grew up under traditional Asian culture, like I imagine, the Chinese, Taiwanese, that's my nationality. They're very similar to the Bengalis in the sense that, they just want you to become a doctor or a lawyer. So you have really literally two choices. If you grow up under doctor, lawyer, accountant, you better, go to Harvard. Pretty much that's your choice. Um, if you don't do any of those above, you're a failure. That to exaggerate, but that's kind of the truth. If you grow up under a traditional Asian
But it's
culture.
true, right? It's a guaranteed safe route that they know you're going to at least you're not going to drown in this world. If
Hmm.
you get this job, you're going to make enough money to provide for your wife and kids as a
And
doctor.
and to anybody, any kids, any high schoolers, that come across this episode, if I have to give any of them advice, you know what? I don't know if I'm gonna change my tune. But I might just have to say black and white, like fuck your parents, okay? At the end of the day, you can either make your parents happy or you can make yourselves happy. And if your own happiness is subject to your parents' happiness, I feel bad for you. I feel very bad for you. You have to kind of disconnect that. What I will say is that uh, if your parents really love you, they're gonna love you regardless of what choice you make. And just I'm not sorry to say this. This is the truth. Okay, it's either your happiness you choose right now or your parents' happiness, and there's really no in between. There's really no in between. You can suffer for the rest of your life, and then go be that doctor that you never wanted to be, and then you might blow your brains out at 45 years of age because you really hate your job and you just realize you spent 20 years of your life flushing your life down the toilet, and then you'll think about suicide. So I feel like I from making that statement, fuck your parents, I'm saving a lot of people from suicide in the future. So I'm happy to stick to that comment right now. Um, Fuck your parents, man. Fuck them. Get cut off. If they threaten to cut you off, fuck them. You know what I've always learned? It's gonna be fine. You're not gonna starve to death. You might think you will, but you're not.
Yeah, that's such great advice, you know, because
You
if you're
got to,
committed
yeah.
to doing it, you'll get to where you're going to. You have to know what do you really want to achieve? What is it going to take? What are you willing to give for it? And
Yeah.
then how do you actually make it happen, right? And it's also someone once told me it's doing what you don't want to do as well when you're getting there.
He-
That's success. It's a part of the success.
Here's the thing, man. It's like work is work, right? That's why they call it work. You're gonna, there'll be fun times, but 90% of it is gonna feel like work, I think, regardless of what you do. Now, if you're chasing your dream and chasing your passion, right? I think the work doesn't feel like work. I think if you're in your field, yeah, you might be working, right? There are long days producing your own movie, right? But that kind of work at the end of the day, I think that 8, 10, 12 hour day will go by like that. It's still 12 hours of work, right? But if you're doing your own thing, if you're doing your passion, right, that day goes by. And then the thing that people don't think about is that You know, when you go to sleep looking forward to the next day. You look forward to going to work. And that's the difference about doing something you enjoy, chasing your passions versus chasing somebody else's passion. Is that like the biggest difference I've found in like really just being on my path versus being on somebody else's path is that when you're on someone else's path, you freaking dread waking up to work every day. You're like, fuck. But when you're on your own path, when you realize you're on the right path, you start to look forward waking up. When you wake up with a totally different energy. You wake up and you're like, oh man, I want to start this day versus hit the snooze button like, oh, please don't tell me I just woke up, you know?
Yeah. And but you always have to be careful and be practical. Just because you're pursuing your dreams doesn't mean that you're passive in it, right? You have to anticipate, okay, which field am I entering because of my passion? And then what does it look like in 20 years? What does it look like in 25 years? Is there retirement here? Am I planning for it? If I'm doing this side type of business, in 20 years when I physically can't do it anymore, can I be a vendor? Can I start putting things in place right now so that I can just be the guy that sells this stuff and manages? Because you have to be so cognizant about your physicality and the limitations that are coming, right? You have to think about the future all the time.
And
Because
that's a big weakness of mine, you know, and I could probably think on where your head's at a little bit more. Not that I don't completely, but you know, I think there's a yin and a yang to everything, right? So there's what you just mentioned, right? Like you have to see if I follow this, will I get destroyed by future technology? Like anybody, you talked about people getting laid off, not because the work's not there, is because they don't need these jobs have been made obsolete with technology, right? So had these same people who are getting laid off right now, if they could see this coming, would they have made different choices and learned different skills in the 5 or 10 years leading up to this point, you know? So on that point, yes, plan ahead, right? But I do want to also, while I agree with you 100%, I had mentioned the yin and the yang, right? There's two sides to every coin. You know, if you're only looking at a coin and right, literally like, you know, if this cup has two different things on it, you know, meowy Christmas. Oh, actually, it says the same thing on both sides. So this cup is not the best example, right? But let's say I'm holding up an actual penny, right? And then you're describing the penny, and you're saying, "Well, it's heads," and I'm like, "Nah, I see tails." We're literally looking at the two sides of the same coin. So you gave the yin, right? You want to plan ahead, right? Where I'm gonna propose to the audience that the different philosophy is the yang, where just be like water. Like I didn't make it up. Bruce Lee did. Or Bruce Lee probably didn't make it up. He borrowed the water philosophy from his master. Bruce Lee just made it popular, right? You
yeah,
could plan ahead. You could spend forever making the best plan that might never materialize because nothing's ever perfect, right? Kind of like having a baby. Everybody always wants to have the perfect job, the perfect situation, but also I keep hearing nothing's gonna be perfect, man. Just have the baby. It's in my head because it might be something I'm planning on in the near future, right? So you presented the plan ahead, always look forward, but I'm gonna go ahead and insert the just be like water, man. Would you do whatever feels right? Use your intuition, flow like water. Take the easiest path from A to B. Okay, just go with the flow, man. Forget about the plan, right? The plan doesn't matter. It's just the here and the now that matters, right? You gotta protect your sanity. You know,
yeah,
you can plan, but you can also plan too much and not get anything done. Just go out there, go out there, go on your phone, hit record, just start talking, man. Just start talking and post it to YouTube and Facebook Live and fuck it, who cares, man? Look, I could go outside, I could get hit by a bus. So what good does my freaking plans do me? You know, if I die tomorrow, like who cares, man? Just have a good time today. Here's something that you might want to think about, right? If you knew you were gonna die, okay, in a couple weeks, what would that change with what you're doing right now? You don't have to answer me, but it's always worth thinking about. If you knew you were gonna die really soon, right? Maybe you got some terminal illness. How would that change what your answer is for whatever questions you're asking yourself? What would you do differently today or tomorrow if you knew you're gonna die in early 2021? I pose that to not just you, pose that to the audience. If you knew you're gonna die in the very near future, does that change your answer to the questions you're asking yourself right now? Then I'll just leave it at that. You can answer, or we can move on to a different topic.
Well, if we can talk about this, it's something that's very close to my heart.
Yeah.
You know, I was never a graphic designer, not officially, but I've been doing something with a group of people where I'm doing all of the graphic design and editing something. I don't know if you want to pull it up or if you can see it on your computer screen right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'll send you the link.
Okay. I could definitely pull it up for the audience, and I'll just fill the space and say something real quick. You had asked me about my parents and how they feel. All right, let me see if I could open this up. Chat box. I can put this on the screen for the audience too. This is your Instagram.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go ahead and throw it up for the audience because I'm able to do that. And while I'm doing that, I will tell you about my personal journey. Well, not journey, but you were talking about parents, and I was saying, my parents weren't the traditional parents. And so I guess I was fortunate not to have the traditional Asian upbringing in a way, and that they're a lot more open with me just doing what I want to do. So that
That is.
yeah, so here, I'm gonna blow this up for the audience. So we're looking at your what do you call this? Your Instagram right now. Okay. So what would you like to show the audience on this page?
This is the project that we're doing independently where I'm trying to make a horror film
Okay.
about a cult in LA.
Okay. So this is kind of like what you said, part of your script in progress.
Something that I want to do that is just completely a collective of friends coming together and trying to use our different skills to make something. So you have the actors, you have somebody that knows this, somebody that knows that, and everybody gives their skills to this. So I run this social media page,
Okay.
which I've never really done before.
All right. So, okay. Well, I got it up for the audience, and I'm gonna put it back to your face right now. We can pull this up as necessary. So, well, I want to just let you know where I'm coming from. And I when I say things, I'm a little bit how do you say? I can be a little bit not very empathetic to the other person's situation. I say it like, oh, fuck the parents. It's easy. I understand. It's not that easy, man. So it's not that I'm unaware. It's easy for me to say that for a couple reasons. Is that my parents are fully supportive of whatever. I also have the personal experience where my father passed away in 2006. So I'm a 37-year-old man, but I haven't had my father, a male authority figure in my life for the last 14 years. Now, that being said, were he still alive, he would most likely just be fine with whatever I want to do. He might want me to, doctor, lawyer, some traditional thing, but at the same time, I did not have the most traditional Asian parents for whatever reason. My mom and my dad were very just supportive of me. And so that was my upbringing. Had a lot of freedom, had a lot of support with whatever I wanted to do. It's totally not traditional Asian parents. So in that sense, I was very fortunate, very lucky. On the other hand, my father did die when I was 23 years old from heart disease, heart attack. And so in that sense, I'm not that fortunate to not have my dad in my life for the last however many years, 14 years. But I pull still a positive from that, right? And because you have to. Part of it is that like I can get a little bit insane in that like I can be the insane forever optimist, right? Like you could do it in like a practical way, which is how I do it, or you could be the insane optimist and just just totally ignore reality, right? That's not who I think I am. But for example, like how could you frame your father's death in a positive way? Well, it forced me to gain a lot of hard skills, right? Like like I had relied on my parents for a lot of things. My dad was, brought home the money, so money was never an issue for me while he was alive. If I wanted something, it just be, hey, Dad, I need this, give me a car, whatever. So in that sense, I was kind of spoiled. And the day he died, from that moment on, it was kind of like I'm on my own, man. I got to look out for my mom and my sister now. And so it's like, well, I just kind of got thrown into the wild all of a sudden, which I'm nothing special. Most kids are like that their whole lives, right? And they learn some lessons and they learn some discipline and they learn they have to make their own money. But up until I was 23 years old, I was pretty spoiled. Like I didn't really have to. I didn't have to earn money if I didn't want to. That's not to say I wouldn't have, but from that moment on, it was like, oh man, I'm my own man, and so I've been hardened in a way from my father's death. I've had to go through life and follow a different path than if he were still alive. So in that sense, I can pull a lot of positives from it. I'm a much stronger and much more powerful person from that experience. Some people might not never recover from something like that. Obviously, I went through the periods of depression that most people will go through. But I try to come out stronger. Like you can only frame things in a positive light, because if you frame things in a negative light, it turns you into a very negative person. It will turn you into a very cynical person, and you're gonna have a mindset of why me. You're gonna have this victim mentality. You're always gonna have excuses for things, and you're gonna feel sorry for yourself, and
Right.
that's no way to live life, right? And so sometimes you just have to be appreciative of what you have instead of feeling sorry for the things that you don't have or that you lost. I'm not new in promoting these kinds of views, but these things are easier said than actually done in your head. You can read a book about thinking positive, right? It's much harder to think positive about your own personal tragedies that happen in your life. There's one thing reading about it and even hearing me talk about it. It's a different thing to actually internalize that thought.
How was that? Do you think it was your upbringing? Were you religiously raised or?
That's another good question. I wasn't, because my name is Omar, but I'm like a yellow-skinned Asian, so it doesn't immediately make sense to most people. But my mom's side of the family, both Taiwanese, by nationality, grandparents from China. So I just tell people Chinese, Taiwanese is kind of the same thing to me. Um, but my mom's side of the family, their religion was Islam, so they're Muslims. My dad's side of the family, Christianity. And I guess maybe humorously, they couldn't really decide on how to raise me, so they didn't raise me with any religion. For me, I was very fortunate because I have a very unique view on religion. Like my best friend growing up was his name is Chuck Thompson. He's a white guy, but his parents were Buddhist, and they were chanting every day. I go to his house, they were like Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. So I got a very open-minded exposure to religion. I had a Muslim mom, a Christian dad, and a Buddhist best friend, and no one was pushing anything on me. So I literally had no beliefs. I had no beliefs. And that's a very weird way to grow up, but this is how I grew up. So it's left me with a very open-minded mindset to religion. I don't know if that really answers your question, but that is how I was raised.
It really does. Was your mum practicing?
Even my mom, she's the oldest in a family of five, and some of my aunts are almost all of my aunts are hardcore Muslims, like where they wear the head wrap and everything. And so like one of my aunt's family, like her and all the daughters. There's quite a few daughters in the family. All very like wrap themselves to different degrees and very follow the traditional Muslim followings. But my mom, being the oldest, for whatever reason, she was just kind of like, nah, didn't really practice it much. You know, maybe it was had to compromise a little bit marrying a Christian man, and he had to compromise a little bit marrying a Muslim woman. But no, it was the only real thing growing up was like, oh, bacon is bad, but I still ate it. You know, it was like I was like, what the fuck? It tastes good. Yeah. So nothing was forced on me, even though my mom, I don't know if she eats, I think she might eat bacon now. I don't even remember if she does or not, even though like the not eating bacon thing was the main thing she didn't do when I was younger. She didn't care if I ate it or not. She still left it to my own, I just knew that they felt like it was not a right thing to do, but it wasn't forced on me either.
Do you think you're? Yeah, I wonder about that sometimes. People that were raised by religious parents that are not religious, do they become religious later in life as you get older? You know, because my parents are religious.
Yeah.
I'm Muslim now, and being in the entertainment industry, you're always told, oh, LA is, don't work in the entertainment industry, don't work in Hollywood, don't make movies. It's a sin. But I grew up wanting to make movies. This was always what I wanted to do. This was my passion, and you fight this right inside of you, where you're like, yeah, I'm a good person and I believe in God, but I want to make movies too. I want to work with filmmakers and I want to
And
work with.
why are you not a good person if you go and do those kind of things? That's what I would ask.
Right, right. Like, why is it taken away from your faith and Islam and anything? Why is any of your choices connected to your family and your generations? Why is it like when you do something, your grandmother is going to be so disappointed in you? This isn't from just me. It's talking with people that come from communities that are so close. Where your choices are connected to your whole family representation. You know,
Well, take it from me, man.
no,
They
no,
will they will they'll still love you, man. Trust me. I mean, they might try to emotionally manipulate you to get you to become the version of you that they want you to be, but dude, fuck it, dude. They have no choice, bro. They can't. I mean, they can always have another son. Good luck to them. Maybe they're too old at this point to have another son, but it's like take it from me, man. I haven't like okay, my mom's not dead. She's alive and I hope she lives forever, right? But I may have disappointed her in my choices, and she may have expressed even my mom. I told you she's open minded, but even some things that I've done or I'm doing, she might not agree with. But I'm her son. She only has one son. I mean, she might not be able to have kids. I don't know, man. Those are female problems. I'm not gonna get into those. But I'm saying, like, I'm still her son. I'm her firstborn. I'm her only son that I know of. I mean, I
no,
don't think she's popped out another one that I don't know of. I'm just saying, man, like
no, I
she
get it.
she only has me, right? It's not like and it look, if she decides never to talk to me again, well, that's a future problem, okay? I guess you have the benefit today of talking to a guy that's like way out on this end of the spectrum, okay? Talk about spectrum. I'm actually autistic, but I'll talk about that in a little bit if you want.
Yeah,
I'm way out there on the yin and the yang, okay? If you talk about somebody who's followed the normal path, went to Harvard, got his degree, then went to med school, and now he's a doctor, you'll get the yin. You talk to me, like the Bruce Lee of marketing over here, you get the yang. Okay, I'm just saying, all right? I don't think about future problems. I deal with the problems as they come to me because future
right.
problems may never be a problem. You can prepare for how many problems could there be, really, right? Like if I go outside, there might be a tornado. So I'm going to have to prepare for that, right? Right? Or I could just say, well, fuck it. I need to go to the store, and if a tornado comes, I'll deal with it when it comes. But if I think too hard about it, right, I may never go outside, and that tornado may never even come because the weather's perfect in LA. Or I could think about every possible horrible thing that might come to me if I go outside, and I might drive myself crazy.
No, it's
So,
good advice. I get what you're saying.
yeah, man. don't even know. See, I tend to get way off topic, but we're talking about our parents and how our parents control our lives, and not just our parents, family members, grandparents, maybe even friends, but the people closest to us tend to control us. And I've brought this up. Sometimes you'll hear me bring this up over and over again, but I use the term energy vampire in a spiritual term, right? And I'm very good at generalizing, and it's a strength and a weakness. But if I can generalize for a moment and just put people in two different groups, okay? So in your life, you just divide people in two different categories. They're either energy vampires or they're in the other group, okay? You have to decide. You have to decide. Is Omar an energy vampire? Is he sucking me dry, or is he giving me confidence to go forward with my path? You put people in two buckets. They either give you energy or they suck you dry of energy. And then the people that suck you dry, you have to cut them out of your life 100%. There's no, just fuck it, dude. Fuck them. And it's not to say forever. It's to say when you're a little bit more balanced, then you can introduce them back into your life if they're important to you, right? But you have to be surgical about this. You have to treat them like a cancer, okay? Anyone sucking you dry of energy, if you're willing to keep them in your life, man, I hope you have bucket loads of energy, because they're like cancers to your soul right now. You know,
Yeah.
and if you talk to a family member that's like, Abdul, I don't think you should be doing this. You know what? You're disappointing me. You're down the wrong path. And, we're Muslims. You're going to go to hell because if you keep doing entertainment, these people you're spending, that's a fucking energy vampire. And you need to cut that cancer out of your life tomorrow, today, right now. I don't know, man. We beat the parent horse to death. I don't know. You asked me a couple other questions. What's my vision? I didn't really want to talk about myself. Maybe if we have some time, at the end, I could tell you more about myself, how I want to see my podcast. So I would rather inspire you to start your own podcast. I know you might already have your own YouTube channel. I just want to inspire you to hit record. Who cares? Hit record, upload, make a playlist called vlogs, so you don't have to edit these things. Just what you think. Like you said, content attracts. Somehow you came to me and wanted to be on my podcast versus me begging people to come on my podcast, right? And this was just by way of just me putting myself out there, So to tie in how we even came together, how you got on this podcast, and what you said earlier of just attract, don't chase. Well, that's how you even got to my podcast. And I would like more of that. I wish my whole schedule was full of people begging me to get on the show rather than me having to go knock on their door, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about being a producer, and more specifically a coordinator. You can educate me. I don't even know what a producer or a coordinator really does on a day-to-day basis.
Well, it depends on what kind of producer you are, but mainly you're dealing with actually making it happen. So if you're an executive producer, you're the production company and you're handling all of the deals and then negotiating how it actually gets paid for, how it gets broadcast or shown somewhere. If it's a movie, how it's being exhibited, how it's being distributed, who is the
Okay.
sales agent for it. And if there's also the kind of physical producer that's on the ground and working with the crews and making sure that everybody arrives on time and there's a location plan and there's lunch coming on time and there's an evacuation plan and they have the vehicles picking everybody up at the right times.
Is that what they call like the showrunner kind of? They have a term like, because producer gets thrown around, but the guy actually on the scene, I've heard the term showrunner, because they're literally they're running the show that day.
Yeah, the showrunner is usually one of the executive producers as well,
Okay.
and they oversee everything. They're more in television. Oh, I was going to ask, what did you study at university? Marketing.
I my undergrad was locally at USC Trojans, University of Southern California, and I had a double major in philosophy and economics, and originally I wanted to go to law school. That never happened because my father passed away and I just had to start working. So my first career was in real estate, and I learned more sales through real estate, and then marketing didn't really happen until after my sales career. I had multiple sales careers after real estate. But marketing, the last, I would say maybe 6 years of my life was marketing. So it was maybe 10 years of sales and then 6 years of marketing. And marketing is just an extension of sales. Sales is a very one-to-one kind of thing. And then marketing, your message gets broadcast to, hundreds of people, millions of people. So it's marketing is just sales to more people is kind of how I would define it. But did I learn any of this in school? Not really, but sales is a lifetime skill that you develop from the time that you're born. Because the essence of sales is empathy, right? It being able to relate and I say manipulate in a very neutral term. Manipulate has a negative connotations, but the essence of sales and marketing is literally manipulating people via their emotions and the words that you use to achieve what you want to do. But that's kind of the old school thought, right? The new school thought, and this is actually more my philosophy nowadays, is sales and marketing. It really is and should be about helping people, right? Helping them achieve their purpose, helping solve their problems, and that's the yin and the yang. There's a little bit of manipulation you have to do on the yin side. On the yang side, there is the you got to help them with what they're trying to do. You have to help to sell. Otherwise, you're doing the wrong kind of sales. But if you don't push people a little bit, right, they'll never make a decision. If you don't simplify someone's decision for them, they have too many choices. So there's a little bit of a pull that you have to do. There's a little bit of push that you have to do. In the end, I think it's the yin and the yang and kind of bringing it together.
That's awesome. And that relates to what I feel like a producer has to do. Putting something together, selling stuff, selling your enthusiasm, like getting people on board with the vision and finding the right team of people. Because every time you do a production, you're creating a business. Top down, right? You have to establish everything that you want out of any type of business that you would establish. And what kind of energy do you want it to have? What kind of life do you want it to have? After you're done making the film, how do you sell it and make sure it has a life or is going to be part of a catalog or a library where it can be taken care of? Because when you're the producer, you're dealing on behalf of the creative people as well. You're representing them. So how do you do it in their best interest? How do you make sure that if it's a filmmaker that wants to have a career, how do you sustain it in the long term? Because I'm very interested in being the kind of producer that can help create something where the filmmaker and the crew have a share in the movie. Why can't we do it like that?
You can. I mean, what's stopping you from doing it like that?
Right now, you have a camera operator, you pay them whatever, and then they're done. They move on to the next one. Do you know the biggest problem camera operators have is their backs and just carrying around a 15-pound plus camera?
Wow.
A very short-lived career. What if that camera operator was and had equity in 10, 15 movies? He could make that as part of his retirement.
Hey man, what? I'll extend this offer to you. I will give free posture classes to your whole team whenever you want. We can do one whenever. You could be like, hey guys, I got this guy Omar. He's a personal trainer. He's the founder of Posture Camp. I've invited him. We could do it virtual or in person. And something the producer does for his staff and his team. Hey, we're gonna today we're gonna start the day with a quick 20-minute how to improve your posture while you're on set. Here's Omar. We could do it virtually if you want. Not now that you brought that up. It's not something I thought about. The camera guy that's got this short-lived career because he's got 100-pound equipment on his back, right? But now you brought it to my attention. It's because I have this thesis. Kind of to bring Posture Camp into the picture. That's my side hustle. For any audience members that don't know, I have a company that I'm working on the side called Posture Camp, and our initiative is to fix everybody's posture, because I start from the thesis that everybody has bad posture, from the cameraman to your office worker to your gamer to anyone that sits in a chair. which is like everybody, which what I'm doing now. Even I'm not having good posture right now, right? I could be sitting up a little bit taller.
Why
Everybody.
it feels more comfortable when you lower your shoulders? What is it? It's like, right?
Well, because because I'll tell you why. Because from the day we're born, we are in a lifelong battle with gravity. Gravity wants us to lay down, but we sit up. We stand up. So we're fighting gravity. And then gravity wants to make you hunched over in your chair. That's natural. So you have to be you have to consciously fight gravity. Every waking moment of your life, every breath you take, every step you take, you are literally fighting gravity, a force that, you know what, that gravity is a strong force to fight. You know, if you're overweight, you feel that to a greater degree. So the first step in fighting gravity is don't be overweight, right? Because every step you take, if you weigh 300 pounds, that's a hundred some pounds extra that you have to carry around.
Were
You
you
know,
ever overweight?
I grew up as an overweight kid, so in my head, you know, you might see some very fit Asian man walking around, but in my head, I'm always that overweight kid. And then I've had a couple periods in my adult life that I've been overweight.
How bad?
I've hit not horribly bad, but I've tipped the scale at over 200 pounds before. I'm 5'10". It doesn't look horrible, but when you're over 200 pounds, it's noticeable in your face and in your body. Yeah.
You know, until I was 26, 27 years old, I was 300 pounds. And
Damn!
I used to have a 47-inch waist.
Damn! 300 pounds. Hey, can you entertain the audience real quick? I'm gonna go take a piss and then I'll come right back.
Oh my, don't leave me like this. I'm not, what am I gonna say?
Oh man, did you even say anything or did you just sit there in silence for a minute?
Oh my, I thought I would get more sympathy than damn.
Ain't no sympathy from I mean, I'll give you sympathy, but like what do you want me to say? Like
No, I like it. I like it. It's a good reaction.
I mean like I mean, I'm like more congratulating you that you're not 300 pounds anymore. I mean, if you were still 300 pounds, man, I probably, you know, I obviously I would be able to tell. You know what I'm saying?
Got down to 154 just through exercise and eating better. And it changed everything. Like my confidence, my energy, my drive, my ambitions,
Yeah.
communicate with people. It just flipped everything.
How how did you get to 300 pounds? What was that journey like? I mean, that's not easy to weigh 300 pounds. I mean, maybe with I mean, it's easier than you might imagine, but like
See,
yeah.
when my dad owns a restaurant, food is how
Mm,
we show affection and love in our community.
wow.
I'm the eldest of five kids.
Okay.
You're always being given food from everybody and just spoiled. So then when I came to America, this was really for the past 5 years a real struggle and learning everything and really facing hardships. And
When did you lose the weight? When you came here or?
I had lost it before I came
Oh,
here.
okay, okay.
And I feel like I got the opportunity to come out here because I lost the weight, because I was so committed to losing the weight and I didn't see any results going to the gym for 18 months. I just had to keep going every day and I didn't know how to train. So I would be in the gym for 3 hours just doing basic exercises and just trying to do anything I could and starving myself to the point where sometimes my hair was starting to fall out. But I was so serious and committed because
Mm,
I didn't want to be that heavy anymore. It was just messing with me in general.
wow. Would you be able to send me one of your fat pictures? I want to put that on the cover of this episode. You know,
Don't do me like that. Come on.
No, it's gonna be. Do you want to inspire a generation of Asian kids to show that this is possible, right? Because my fat story isn't as amazing. Going from 200 pounds back down to 150 or 160 is not as inspiring as 300 pounds back down to 155. You literally lost half a human being, right? But anyway, it's up to you. I would like to not to shame your previous self, but more to show someone like, dude, look what this guy did on his own, without a trainer, without drugs, without steroids, just by sheer will and determination. And now he's in America making movies from Bangladesh, from England to here, and lost the weight.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an inspiring story, man. Thanks for sharing that. I don't know if we covered everything that you wanted to cover about, but I always like to wrap it up in an hour. We can go a little bit longer, but I mean, sometimes for me, not sometimes, every single time I hit the hour mark, I'm freaking amazed because when I started the podcast, I didn't know what I wanted it to be, where it was going, whether I could fill an entire hour. I'm like, dude, I'm an introvert. I don't talk, so I'm like, I never have conversations in real life that last longer than 10 seconds. Hey, how you doing? I'm like, I'm good. Bye. I don't even care about asking the other person because I'm autistic. So I don't even like, if I don't care about how you're doing, I'm not going to ask you how you're doing. So say people, and it's not like I'm unaware of how to make small talk. It's just small talk doesn't interest me and I don't see the value of it. I see the value of it, but it's like, I don't want to do it. So I'm not going to do things anymore that I don't want to do. I used to do it, but like, yeah, you got at some points in life, you got to be selfish and do what you want to do. So, I mean, it sounds funny, but in real estate, right? In real estate, 15 plus years ago, as like a 23, 24-year-old kid, I'm like people would like I'd go to the restroom in the hallway in the real estate office, right? And then I would exit the restroom and see people in the hallway, and then people would be like, "Hey Omar, how's it going?" And I made the conscious decision not to engage in small talk because I had shit to do. So I'd be like, "Good," and I just keep walking.
Yeah.
Because they ask me a question, I answer, and I leave. And I know I'm supposed to say, "Oh, great, how was your day? What did I fuck that bullshit?" Okay. Very early on in my life, I try to incorporate a little bit more of that. Now I may go in the other direction. I see the value in making small. I mean, I'm sitting here, right, running a podcast, so I have to learn how to talk like normal people now. So let's kind of just sharing a little bit about myself with you.
Yeah.
Okay, now anything else you want to cover? Ask me about me, talk about you, whatever. I try to make the podcast more about the guest because I tend to talk about myself too much. So I'm really happy to talk about whatever you want to talk about or whatever you want to hear.
I just want to share. I'm growing my mustache for Movember. It's to raise awareness for prostate cancer.
Okay.
And if your viewers can Google 1,000 men, 1,000 mats, there are,
What is that? I'll write some of that in the description too and put a link if you want to share the link with me.
yeah. And it's a very charitable thing where they're trying to raise money for men's prostate cancer.
Okay, 1,000 men, 1,000 what?
1,000 men, 1,000 mats.
Mats. Okay, what does that mean,
And
mats?
the virtual yoga, and they're
Oh,
trying to get 1,000 men to do yoga virtually all around the world. And there's 2 more sessions left, and they're doing it every Sunday. And it's LA 10 a.m. Next Sunday, LA 10 a.m. And it's all to raise money for charity.
all right. I'll be there on Sunday because yoga's been this thing that I've always wanted to do, but I just procrastinate and then just I want to do it because it ties into what I'm doing posture camp also. But I'm master procrastinator. If it's not important to me, I just put it off, put it off, put it off. I'll use this as an opportunity to start learning yoga as well for myself. But I'll be there. I'll promote this link and this cause on the description. of the video also, since that why don't you tell the audience why is that cause prostate cancer near and dear to your heart?
I feel like it's a worthwhile cause because a lot of men don't know that they have prostate cancer.
Mm,
And it kills a lot of men in our community, especially where we don't go to the doctors when we should get checked up. So the more of us that can be aware of it and read up on prostate cancer and
okay.
November, the safer we can be.
Okay. Okay. Anything else you wanted to talk about that I may not have covered or just glossed over?
Would you want to talk about being on the spectrum and knowing about that and how you navigate everything? How does
Well,
that change?
well, that was actually the real catalyst for this podcast, and I'm on like this might be my 9th episode, my 9th actual interview with another person, and as I may have mentioned to you earlier, I've going on 12 or more jobs in the last 10 years. To a point, I'm actually proud of it. It's just a little bit embarrassed. Like if you go into your next job interview and the employer's like, well, tell me about the jobs you have. Well, Mr. Employer, this might be like my 14th job if you hire me in the last 10 years. Like, who's going to hire a guy like that? Nobody. It's not something that I want my next employer to know about. But now I'm like proud of it. I'm like, you know what? I'm a professional job getter at this point. I will ace any interview because I've had so many interviews. I'm a fucking expert interviewer now. You know, I will ace the interview. I have like a 1-to-1 ratio on interviews to jobs. Part of that is because I go for the shittiest fucking jobs available. Busboy, warehouse worker, all minimum wage jobs. Why? Because I know I'm not going to last there very long. So why go for a good job when you know you're not going to be there for... When you have a history of not staying at your job very long, you're not going to go for the best jobs. You're going to go for the worst jobs. So as far as that, I will ace any interview, not because I'm an expert interviewer, but because I'm going for the worst jobs. And they're like, well, they're looking at my resume like, damn, couldn't you get some 6-figure job somewhere? I'm like, yeah, but I want this job right now, man. Don't, like don't fucking give me shit about it, man. Come on. You know what I'm saying? I don't even know what the question was. Help bring me back on track. Oh, the spectrum.
What would you do? What job would you do if you could do anything long term? What is it that would get you up every day?
Exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm working with a buddy doing sales and marketing for his law firm, but it's my college friend, so he kind of knows me very well. He is very flexible. Like I'm doing this podcast while I should be doing stuff for the law firm, but like as long as I get my shit done, he's cool. It's very flexible. I can work any time of day I want doing his sales and marketing stuff. I'll even work on the weekends, so he's not judging me per hour if I'm pushing work, as long as there's a daily task, there's weekly tasks, there's monthly tasks. And so if those get done, then it's cool. And I'm doing exactly what I want right now, which is when you're aligned with what you want to do, the money doesn't even matter. It's I look forward to waking up every day. I'm speaking from experience. I'm not just spouting theory now. I'm saying like I literally look forward to waking up every day. I have things on my mind before I go to sleep. I'm like let's get to sleep now so I can wake up the next day. And when I wake up the next day, it's like, well, there's things I actually want to do. There's things I actually want to accomplish, rather than, oh fuck man, I don't want to go to work. But I only found out I was autistic about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Someone just casually mentioned, hey Omar, you might be autistic. And I'm like, all right. I went and looked at the characteristics, and I'm like, well, god damn, like that explains a lot. And it's not severe autism, which is why I could skate by for 37 years of my life and not really know. But it's pretty common for people with what used to be called like Asperger's, which is high functioning autism now. They got rid of that term maybe 7 years ago, but I think people still use it because it's easier to say Asperger's than to say, well, I'm on this spectrum and I'm on this end of the spectrum and blah blah blah. But I'm trying to, I don't know, like normally I think most people like when you have whatever, like I think most people will call autism a disability, and there's 2 lines of thought. If you don't call, like, I don't consider what I have a disability per se, but it really kind of is in a lot of ways. So it's just, how do you want to frame who you are? The reason I don't frame it as a disability is because that's just not me. I'm not a victim mentality. But on the other hand, there are a lot of people with severe autism to where, you know what, that is a disability. You literally cannot survive without help from people, from your family, from the government. And there's people in my case where I can get by in life. I've gotten by 37 years without even knowing I have this condition. And in a lot of ways, I look at it like a gift. It's given me a very practical mindset. I think your average autistic person has a very practical way of looking at the world, which means a lot of things like small talk just don't make sense. Like, yeah, and when I say we, I mean Asperger's, autistic people can learn how to do these things. But while I'm doing it, it still kind of makes no sense to me, right? Like, what? How's your day? It's great. How's your day? It's great. How's the weather? It's great. How's your family? It's great. In my mind, while I'm running this conversation in one train of thought, there's a parallel train of thought that, like, I don't care. I don't know if he cares. Why are we even having this conversation? And then that kind of gives you an insight into the autistic mind of how stressful it is to be in normal society, because we're forced to do things that are not practical to us. I'm fortunate that I'm on the high functioning end to where I'm able to do these things. Some autistic people are so severely impacted that they can't even function in real life. So that just gives you kind of a insight into how we think and behave. And one of my ulterior motives to the podcast was to spread awareness about autism. I'll talk about it as little or as much as people want. That's literally the catalyst for the show. I couldn't figure out a very good direction to go. Like I just told you, I've had at least 12 jobs. I'll go list them because for me, I'm proud of it now, right? Because see, the thing is, I used to think, what the fuck is wrong with me? Everyone in my family is like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? He should be a doctor or a lawyer. He should be making $200,000 a year by now. Yeah, he can't even hold down a minimum wage job. Well, I used to see myself as like a really damaged, fucked up human being, to where after I find out I have autism, all this behavior is normal for Asperger's or autistic person. You go ask it's normal for an autistic person to like just job hop because they hate their fucking jobs, and life is stressful for me. Like in the normal way, if I'm not doing what I want to do, it is much more stressful for me than a normal person. And I used to just say, well, I just have to take it. I just have to sit there and push through. And if I don't, I'm a big pussy, But now I understand that, hey, man, this is just how I feel as part of my condition, and there's nothing wrong with me. So now I'm more like, I just flow like water, man. If I don't like this job, well, fuck it, I quit. There's no stress about it anymore. Yeah, I mean that's how it is, man. I talk about it all day long. Like I said, I'm talking about myself as one of my strengths or weaknesses, so I try not to do it very much if I can help it. But I can't help it sometimes. The autistic person is not very good at conversations. They don't know like what the natural ebb and flow of a conversation. When am I supposed to talk? So I've consciously tried to do better in my interviews about letting the guest talk and finish his sentences and not interrupt him, because the autistic person can tend to be like, oh, I have a great question, I'm going to ask it now. And then you can see me from previous interviews to my future interviews where I'll consciously work on that, let the guest finish his thought, I told you at the beginning, if you see me typing, it's not because I'm chatting, it's because I'm typing down questions and ask them at a better time.
Yeah.
But that was the impetus and the catalyst for the show, because I have so many different things. Marketing is a very strong skill of mine, but did I really want to start a podcast on marketing? I'm like, nah, I know I could do a few good episodes on marketing, but well, fuck, I'm going to quit that just like I've quit every other job that I've had. So once I found out I had autism 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was like, that will be the reason for the show. A 37-year-old man finds out he has autism, hit record. So I could have any guest I want. I could talk about anything you want to talk about. We could talk about any cause that's near and dear to your heart, and I'm not boxed in by anything, which is a very wonderful position to be in, on the podcast and just in life in general.
A friend once told me a great piece of advice. You know, when you said about conversations and knowing when to enter and everything,
Mm-hmm.
he's obsessed with baseball. And he said, it's just like playing catch. A good conversation, you just imagine a ball being thrown from you to them and then back.
I'm gonna
And
write this down,
wait
okay?
for the ball to just come back to you. And that's all. When you're talking to those person, just imagine that ball in their hand when they're talking. And just wait for it to be thrown back. And you'll find a rhythm.
You gave me two good things to think about today. The baseball analogy, and then I did write this down. What was that? What was that first one about? Attract, don't chase. So I actually pulled really two good life generalizations: attract, don't chase, and in conversations, throwing and catching a baseball. Did you have anything else that was like nagging at you, really wanted to ask me or talk about before we close it for the audience?
No, thank you so much for this
No,
time.
thank you for your time, man. I've actually gained a lot from some of these things that you talked about. So thank you for reaching out also. Yeah, I'm gonna roll the credits for, I don't know if I'm just gonna play the same song to enter. You can say bye to the audience. This is gonna play for about 30 seconds. Yeah, and my
Easy music.
I think I'll have a different intro and extro next time. But we're just playing the same song at the beginning and the end. But I'm glad I have this music, and I'm gonna, right after this episode ends, I'm just gonna upload it. Like I told you, there's no cuts. It's beginning to end. There's no editing. I kind of like it that way. Kind of goes with my Bruce Lee, just flow philosophy. You know, it's just like, it is what it is. If we made a mistake, then too bad. So we're gonna cut it right here.